In this video I'm going to talk about product labels and promotional inserts. This video carries on a little bit from the video on packaging, where I was talking about how I box my products up to increase the perceived value. But just to recap on that, the type of products that I do that with, I put the product in a velvet bag, I put the velvet bag in the box, and then I put the barcode and some other elements on the box, and I'm going to talk about those in a moment. And then that box goes to Amazon. Amazon sends the box in one of their brown Amazon branded boxes to the customer, and when the customer opens it, my product is there. It's its own thing, even though it's in Amazon packaging, and that is why I actually use a box. But a box won't be suitable for all types of product. Kind of depends on what you're selling and what the product comes in, but you might need tags, or you might need to use stick-on labels. Now, if you'll use a stick-on label, which are very easy to produce, then you'll really, just like the other packaging I was talking about, you're going to really want it to stand out and to be different from other sellers, and it needs to look and feel premium. It really is worth making the effort to think of really good ideas for labels or any packaging, or tags, boxes, etc. Because if you think of a good idea up front and put some effort into it, you're just going to make more money. There's going to be, people will recognize and remember your brand. It's really worth spending time getting it right, and you'll really see the benefits if you do that. A lot of sellers just get a product, they buy it wholesale from China, they put it in some simple blister packaging and some plastic wrap, and then they send it off, and they never really get anywhere. They sell, but they never, they're not exactly going to build a brand, and that is what we are aiming for here. So you can see some designs which I've included on this page, just as some examples. Doing these, it kind of depends on what you're doing. And what you need to include on your labels, it depends on the product. If it's a food product, you're going to need to include some additional elements such as nutritional information and allergy information and so forth. We're not going to be, I hope you're not thinking about doing food products to begin with, but if you are in the future, you'll need to think about it. And there are some other elements as well, such as the barcode that you'll need to include. I also just wanted to bring up a few more examples. Even though this is part of a packaging, that could be a label. Quite simple to create, just needs a good idea. Again, this could be a label. Now, even though this is on brown packaging, it's you could still add a label to it. You don't necessarily need to have a new type of brown packaging created for this. And then looking at this one again, you could actually, even though this is part of a packaging, you could actually create this as an individual label and stick it on the box or on the product itself. So those are some additional ideas. Again, this is quite effective, but again, this is very simple. This isn't going to cost anything to get created. Really, it's just down to having a good thought and creating something effective and spending some time, on this, to reap the rewards later down the line when you're actually selling the product. So when you're creating your label or creating your packaging, no matter what it may be, you're going to need to include a number of things. You're going to need to include your logo. You're going to need to include your website URL. And we'll come on to that a little bit later. The website URL should really be small, and the reason why is because otherwise Amazon won't allow your product to be sold if it's you don't actually want they don't want people going to your website necessarily. It's okay if it's providing some sort of value, but if you're creating a label, you do want your website name and website URL on there. But we'll come on to that a little later. You'll need your FN SKU number and barcode. So it can be scanned once it arrives at Amazon. We need to include where your product was made. So for instance, if it's made in China, you'll need to include that information, but keep it small. If it's made in the USA, then maybe make it a little larger so people know that it's made in the country where they live. And then you'll need to include any other warning labels as well. So that's what you'll need to include on your packaging and on your labels or tags, depending on what you're doing and how you're presenting your product. If you have any questions on this, it's you can either contact me, and it's also worth contacting Amazon before you create anything, just to check that you're doing the right thing, just to check you don't go and get 1,000 labels printed off only for there to be some type of issue, or perhaps Amazon has changed their rules and regulations for sellers. So I would definitely recommend checking with Amazon before you get anything created at all. I do it for every single product, and literally anything I do, because Amazon support is so good. You just email Seller Central support, say I'm going to do X, Y, and Z, is this correct? And they will tell you whether that's correct or not. It's always worth doing that. Now the next thing I want to talk about is our product inserts. A product insert is an element, a piece of paper or a card, or like a business type card, which will be included in your packaging. So when someone receives your product, they open up the box or whatever the packaging may be, and they see this additional element in the form of a card. Now on this, you'll need to get these designed, printed out, and sent to your manufacturer, or perhaps your manufacturer could print them themselves, and they will need to include this in each individual package, and then obviously send it to Amazon after packaging and sealing everything up. So on this card will be your logo. You'll need to thank the buyer for their purchase. If you have the need to include any necessary instructions for the product that you're selling, then add them onto this as well. Again, add your website URL and the details about your opt-in offer. So in other words, a person will go to your website, they will see basically an offer where they enter their email, sign up in order to get a discount code for a further purchase of one of your products, but we'll come on to that later. And then there are some other things you can include about loyalty or premium programs, but again, we're going to come on to that a little later. That's sort of a little more advanced. And most importantly, on this product insert, you'll need to ask the person for a review, because the more reviews you can get, hopefully the more positive reviews you can get, the higher Amazon will rank your product in the search results. So you can see I've given an example of the type of thing you should include here. So it's really just the case of just saying, I'd be very grateful if you could take the time to leave a review, and then you just need to give them very specific instructions about how to do that, because most people don't really know how to leave a review. They don't know that they need to go back to the product page. Then because they're signed into their Amazon account, Amazon knows they've bought the product in the past, and then they leave a review that way. But most people don't know how to do that, so you really need to tell people, do this, and do this, and write a review. So that's very important as well. In terms of designing the insert, again, it's really just like creating a business card, or just doing something very simple. Photoshop, it really just needs to, it doesn't need to be anything amazing to begin with, it just needs to deliver the information. And you could again do this in Photoshop, or get a graphic designer to do it for you. I've included an example of very good product insert here. You don't need to go this far, but I thought that I'd just include it just to show you what can be done with a little bit of thought and effort. So that's it for this video. So it's very important to think about the packaging, the labels and the tags, depending on what you're selling and what your packaging will be. Make sure that you spend time thinking about it and getting it right and coming up with something unique which makes you stand out from the crowd. Always contact Amazon before you do anything, before you get anything printed off or created, just to check you're absolutely right. You're getting you're getting it done correctly. You need 100% confirmation that you're doing it correctly before you do anything. And then obviously just think about your product inserts and get those designed as well. And really, just as an overview of both this section and the previous section and video on product packaging, the more time you put into this, the more effort, the more thought, the the more products you will sell, and it's very, very much down to that. If you look at really great brands and products, they always have incredible packaging. It really lifts a brand up. People remember your brand, and they remember your products, and they're more likely to tell their friends about it, especially if you have something unique, and they're more likely to come back and buy again from you in the future.